We've taken a look at a couple of really simple examples. The hello world, a counter. Let's step up a little bit, and now let's work on being able to manipulate, for instance, a collection of things, a collection of objects. For instance, this might be useful for your next assignment where you need to manipulate a list of widgets. Yes? So we'll see how we can add to the list, remove from the list, edit elements in that list. All right. So let's take a look at that next. Let's see. Let's close this project, and instead let's create. Let's go on to the a new project. Let's see where we are. Let's see. Actually, we already have a React client that we were playing around with. All right. So that'd be a nice place to experiment. All right. So let's go in there. All right, the React client, and let's npm start. Let's see what we have there. Let me close this project and instead open up that other project. I believe it's this one. All right, so there's our whiteboard. We have course lists and whatnot. So to play around with this, let's add another section here where we can explore working with a list of widgets. Right? Remember, I think the assignment asks you to be able to add any number of types of widgets. Right? So let's see how we would edit a list of widgets. Let's see. All right. Let's see. We'll need a placeholder to do our experimentation here. Let's see. We have our index, and here we have a course editor that lists courses. We also had, I think, some routings down here, right? There's our routers. So let's create a brand new component that where we can explore a list of widgets. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's we have containers, right? In a container, let's create a brand new container directory, and we'll call it widgets. Okay, and in here, let's create a new component called widget list component, right? JS, and right now it will just import React from React. And we're only just going to render something simple for now. Right? So this will be export const widget list component, right? That will render just as an h1 that says widget list. Okay. Right. And what we'll do is from our index page, we're gonna let's import that. We'll say import it here. We'll say import widget list component from, let's see, containers, widgets, and then widget list component. All right, so we imported it. And what we're going to do is that at the bottom, we'll just create another route. Okay, and we'll say maybe call it widgets. And the component we're going to render is widget list. There we go. And we'll create a link for it too. That if we click on that, it'll just navigate there. Let's see. Export default. Okay. Widget list component. Export default. All right, doesn't like that syntax, so we need to do this instead, right? So we need default and then widget list component, and this is just a constant. Is it happy now? Maybe? Okay. All right, so if we click on widgets, we're in that widget list. Everybody okay? Right, we are in the widget list. Okay. All right, let's see. Let's clean this up a little bit. Maybe we want a bar here. There we go. to widgets. All right, so we want the list of widgets here. If we click on plus, minus, it adds different widgets. But first, let's first see how we can add Redux and have a reducer that generates just an array of default lists of widgets. Right? So let's see how we can do that first. Right? Again, having the reducer generate an initial list of widgets. Right? So let's look at that. All right, so let's go to widget list. All right, so let's see. I believe this project doesn't have Redux installed. So let's install that. Let's go here. Let's stop this for a second. And let's npm install Redux. And we'll say save. So we're adding to our React client. We're adding Redux. We'll also need to add, obviously, React Redux, right? And we'll import it and create the stores and whatnot and the whole thing. Okay, we added Redux. Let's do an npm install React Redux and save. Oh, spelled it. React Redux. All right. Okay, excellent. So we have both. Let's now our widget list component. Typically, what we would have here is a store, a reducer, right, that generates an initial state, right, that passes it along, and that a provider would then pass it along to us. Okay. And that has to be done at the top level of the application, right? So that would live here in our index page, right? So our index page right now, we have just this router, okay? We have this router, and on top of that router, we have to have a provider that provides this data in there, right? But let's leave that for a minute. Let's see how we would render it. So for instance, the widget list component, we would like to be able to render an array of widgets. Okay, so we can start by creating a reducer. Let's create that here. For instance, maybe we'll put a directory where it has all of our reducers. So we'll have here reducers, and we're going to have several reducers. I'm not going to put it in index.js, right? This will be a widget reducer, right? It only generates a list of widgets. So we're going to create here a file and call it widget reducer. Okay, and in here we're going to have perhaps an initial state. So this will be let widget widgets, and it'll have maybe an array of widgets, and it'll have maybe a title for the widgets. So this will be maybe widget 1, and let's keep it simple. So just the title. So just a couple of these. So widget 1, widget 2, and widget 3. So it's an array. Okay, and the reducer for now we'll keep it simple, right? It's just going to return this initial list of widgets. Right? So this will be constant widget reducer. It's going to have a state that's going to have an initial value of actually probably our this will be what we want. Probably is not that it's just going to have just the widgets. It'll probably be an object that has widgets and has an array. I think that's a better choice. Right, so it's an object, right, that has as one of its parts is the list of widgets. If this were a big object that might maintain the entire state of the application, one of the things might be just the list of widgets, but it might maintain other things, right? The courses, the modules, it might maintain lots and lots of things, right? Of which one of them is the list of widgets. Yes? Okay. So here we have the initial state, right? And for now, it's just only returning the state, right? So it's a hard-coded value that's returning. Yes? Okay. We'll need to export it. So this will be export. Export the widget reducer. And that's about it. That's all I really need. We need here. Now we need to create a store, right, and provide it to our application. Right. So let's do that. Let's in our index, let's bring our provider. So we'll do an import provider. We'll also need the connect. Well, actually, no, we don't need the connect here, right? We'll need that from Redux, React Redux, right? We'll also need to create the store, right? We'll need to create the store. But that's from the other library, right? That's create store. That's from where? That's from Redux itself, right? Just Redux. There it is. So let's create the store, and then we'll have the provider provide that store to our application. Yes, let's create the store. So let's go down further down. So let's create the store right here. So we'll say let store equal create store, and we need the reducer, right? Right now, there's the reducer is just our widget reducer, right? Which we now it just imported it. There it is, widget reducer, imported it for us. Okay, that's the beauty of using an IDE, aware of your infrastructure. Okay. All right, we have the store. Let's provide that store to our application. So we'll say provider, and the store is equal to our store. And we will be right here, provider. Okay? We install that, and we can do an npm start. Okay, so we are widget lists, and indeed our reducer is providing that state. We're not doing anything with it, right? It's providing that state. We need to somehow map, right, that state of the widget list, those arrays, and map it to some property in our component. Okay, so our component, presumably our widget list component, presumably takes as argument, the widgets, right? An array of widgets, and it iterates over them, right? And it generates a dynamic UL and LIs and whatnot, right? It iterates over that. All right, we'll do that a little in a minute. One of the things I'd like to be able to do real quick is perhaps we can do a widgets.length, right? If we do that, it's gonna break probably because widgets is empty, right? So it doesn't exist. And you're asking for the length of some object that doesn't exist, right? So we need to map this, right? We need to map that. So let's create a container, right? That will connect, right? So let's do that. Let's create a container. So in containers, in widgets, right? So let's create here in widget list container. What do we need here? Let's see. We need to import. We need connect, right? We need connect from React Redux. What else do we need? We need that component, right? That component we just created. So we'll import the widget list component from. Did I export it? I don't think I exported it. Oh, I did. Okay, it is from widget list component. Right? What are you complaining about? Oh, okay, no, I don't need this. And now I can connect. Right? I can say const widget list container is equal to connect, and we pass as our argument the widget list component. Yes? All right. And we need to export this. So we're going to export this. We're going to say export default widget list container. All right, and that's what we're going to render here in our index instead of rendering the widget list component. We're going to render the widget list container. So widget list container. There we go. Right? It's probably still going to complain saying that widgets is empty. Right? I don't have that, but at least it's being loaded. Right? So let's feed it. Let's connect it to a map. So let's go into the container. Let's create a mapper. The mapper is going to look just like we did before, right? So it's going to be a regular function. So it's going to be state to property mapper, and it's just going to be a function that takes as argument the state. It's going to return a JSON object that maps the widget list component's widgets property. Right? Where's that going to grab it from? From the state.widgets. Widgets. Yes? Right? And then we're going to use that to connect it. Right? Connect it. And we render. Notice that now it's not breaking. It says, yes, I'm receiving 4 widgets. I am receiving the array. Right? What I do with it is up to me. In our particular case, what we like to be able to do in the widget list component is maybe iterate over that. Right? We're going to say maybe UL, class name. This is a list group. Right? And then we just want to iterate over this. Right? Saying, take the widgets, map over them, and as you receive each widget and an index, return the following li elements. Li, whose class is list group item, and the key is the index, and whose, let me clean that up, and whose text is going to be the widget dot title. Right? So now we have those 4 widgets, right, that we passed in from the reducer. The reducer is pushing this data in here, right? Which right now it's hard coded. Right? We're not editing. We're not providing any events to add or remove or update. But we have at least one way of the connection, right? The reducer sending the state and us rendering it as a component. Make sense? Right? The next thing we need to do is say, okay, well, now we need to be able to go the other way around, right? How do we generate events such as create a new widget, or delete an existing widget, right? Or update an existing widget, right? So we need to go now the other way around. We need to be able to send events. For instance, if we have a button here that we want to delete, right? That widget, we'd like to be able to send. Right, we might like to be able to dispatch, delete widget. Right, we like to be able to, if you click on this, on click, be able to call this delete widget that will dispatch to reducer, and the reducer will need to generate a new list of widgets, a new array, minus the widget that we are removing. Right, it'll need to generate a new array, right, that does not contain the old widget that we're trying to remove. Make sense? All right? And we'll do that next.